Welcome to the Seriously Social podcast with your host, Simone Douglas. This episode features an interview with Tania Jolley from DNA Security Solutions.
Okay, so welcome to this episode of the Seriously Social podcast. I'm joined today by Tania Jolley from DNA Security Solutions. Tania, thanks for taking some time out today.
Thanks, Simone, for having me.
No,
it's great to be here.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. So maybe you can just start by giving us the Cliff Notes version as to how you've ended up on the red chairs today.
Sure. So really an absolute accidental entrepreneur. Had a number of businesses that I guess through years have taught me different skill sets and I've been involved in different industry sectors. And to be honest, sometimes during that journey, I often wondered why I was there.
Yeah.
And then sort of 15 years ago, we had a company called Technotronics, and we worked with Sapole in a first generation property marking security product. They then asked us, could you develop a product that marked criminals at crime scenes at the time that the crime was occurring with unique forensic evidence so that they could catch up with them at another time and place and have the correct forensic evidence to actually link the criminal back to the crime scene.
Yeah, cool.
That started us on our journey. That is how we developed DNA Security Solutions. That's how DNA Guardian came to be birthed, I guess. And then we realised that the most needy sector in the market was retail. For us here in Australia, specifically gaming, hotel hospitality venues, of course. The dynamics within each industry changes over time, and so the old bank robberies that used to happen sort of shifted down a level, if you like, to the hotel sector because of their physical target hardening and the fact that branches have become very difficult to actually get into these days. So, the criminal, I guess, attacks and their focus then became who's the next softest target.
Yeah, and hotels generally are, having been in that industry a very long time.
That's exactly right. And the previous industry that I was involved in was hospitality back in the beginning of the 2000s. And
cool.
I had a fantastic job and a brilliant sort of 3.5 years in SA hospitality, and I absolutely loved it. I was really sad to have left, but those 3.5 years were just magic grounding for us when we realised then that actually hospitality was going to be a great fit for what we had developed. And we were going to be able to provide a fabulous solution for those businesses.
Yeah, cool. So in your career span, I suppose, having worked in all those different industries, what has been the thing that surprised you most about where your networks fall in that? So like how the networks have kind of followed you through?
I'm not sure that anything's actually sort of surprised me. I guess what I have learnt though is that you need to put effort into creating your networks, creating your relationships and keeping them. And so you get out of anything whatever you're willing to put into it. And you have to be able and willing to put in first. So you give before you receive. You give of yourself, you give of your time, you give of your interest before you then do the ask. And I think that has been my biggest lesson. And often you don't need to ask. Once you've given and people get to know who you are and your generosity and that you're there for the right reasons, in whatever industry or networking or whatever it is, whatever group that you're in, it's sometimes you don't even have to really do a formal ask for help or for something because
they just want to help.
That's right, they offer, and it might just be in a conversation that I'm having a bit of a difficulty with this, or hey, what did you do in this situation? I'm kind of there now and I'm stuck. And so then it comes very organically as opposed to actually having to formally tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, excuse me, but can you help me in this area?
And I think there are two types of sales people in the world often, so and in business, so we take a very relationship based selling approach, so the relationship's always more important than the sale,
as always.
And but then you have the other type of person. Sometimes I get messages from them on LinkedIn, that they take it what I call a burn and churn approach. So it's just a numbers game of flipping contacts until someone finally says yes.
Yes.
But, when I talk to my guys, and I think, like you said, you're very similar in your approach to business, and definitely from what I've seen, online, but it's about, just help the people.
Yes.
And then everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I have been the kind of sales, marketing focus of our business.
Yeah.
And I've always taken the point of view that I shouldn't have to sell my solution or our technology.
Yeah.
It's got a very, very important part to play in the businesses that see the risk and want to do something about it. I can't force that hand.
Yeah.
And when those businesses understand the risk and the impact to their business, if they do suffer a criminal attack, specifically even worse so if they're open. So it's the armed robbery situation in hospitality that has such a horrendous effect on the business.
Yeah.
But it's once our customers get to that point that the sale stops, like the selling as such stops. All I'm there to do is offer, to describe, to show people what it is, what benefits we can offer them, and then it's up to them to decide whether they have the risk or the need for that.
Yeah.
And I've always been a big believer that if you've got the right product, then the right people will come on board.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find in your network, like what things have you put in place to ensure that your network is forever expanding? So one of the issues I think not all business owners, but some business owners have, is that they get into a routine and they might have some informal networking that they do on a regular basis, or some structured networking that they do.
Yeah.
But it's the only networking that they do, and what I tend to see with those types of business owners is that their networks constrict. How have you avoided that happening for you?
So again, I guess it's been a conscious effort, but not a difficult effort. And I have consciously, certainly in the last 5 years, gone after new networks.
Yeah.
So if there's new incubators opening up, I'll be the first person to put my hand up and say, sure, I'd like to know more. How do I become involved, or is this for me? And so I have been very privileged, I guess, and very blessed to have been involved in a lot of different programs. So in 2015, I was the first South Australian woman taken into the Springboard Enterprises program in Australia. That opened my networks up to America, and then later on via that I was introduced into the Dwen network. So that's Dell's Women in Enterprise Networks, a very high level networking and opportunity to go to some of their conferences around the world. So it's not it takes effort to get involved in those things, but you've got to be willing to say yes. Yeah. As opposed to sort of going, oh, maybe, or no. I guess I've always been that sort of inquisitive type of person and gone, hey, I'll learn more. I'm sure that there's more I can learn here. And so I'm just constantly reaching out to the different opportunities that become available to me.
That's a really common theme when I talk to successful people in business, and certainly for myself, is that preparedness to say yes and figure out the logistics afterwards often, but the opportunity looks like fun, or it looks good, or I'm going to learn something. So often, as a mum, and my kids are only 13 and 10, but, often then the back thing in my head is, when do I have the kids, and, who's going to look after them if I have to jump on a plane for 3 days? But it still all, works out.
It does. It does. I think you make it work out. Yeah. And, I'm sure your kids, as mine do, and we talk to them often because, they have to give as well. Yeah. Like where we do ask sometimes that, of their time. Yeah. But they, are very inspired by what it is that we do, and I think proud. And they love watching our journey and our growth and the roller coaster that we go on. I mean, they go on the ups with us, but they also come on the downs with us as well.
Absolutely.
So, getting to learn that grit and that resilience and learning to look at what opportunity looks like. Sometimes opportunity, when it knocks on the door, it can sound different at different times, and it can look different at different times.
Yeah, and sometimes it can look like a distraction, but it's not really. Or it's a sideways step or whatever else it might be.
Yeah,
it's funny. I had a conversation with my kids in the car. Well, it would have been about a year ago now, and it was when I really worked out how much of an impact talking to them about business has on where they want to go.
Yeah.
So they're in the back seat and I'm driving the car, and Saxon's going, so Hunter, when you have your company, how many staff are you going to have? And he goes, and if we got a building together and then you could be on the top floor. And anyway, so I'm listening to them, and then Saxon, my youngest, pops up and he's like, oh, and Mum, when you're not making the world a better place, you can be our receptionist. And I was like, oh honey, thank you. Mummy's never going to be anyone's receptionist, but there is a place for that, but I'm too busy doing the other things. And then I said to him, but the fact that you think I make the world a better place, I'll take that one. That's,
absolutely. That's just gold, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what you want to be doing. I think that's, like you say, all good business people, that's all we want to be doing, is making the world a better place with whatever product or service or solution that we're coming up with. It's that incremental progress that we're making.
Well, and I think too, I was having a conversation with my friend Brad. He's the sponsorships manager for Bendigo Bank, and he said, the thing that I love about the way that you network is it's never about what's in it for you. It's always just about like introducing people to people and just seeing what happens. And I said, well, it's a bit like Mad Scientist really, because I'll host a lunch and I'll put 20 people in a room for no other purpose than putting 20 people in a room. Yeah. They all own their businesses. They sit down, and I'm always fascinated about like who ends up doing business with who and who connects to who, and
the gravitation and the cross-pollination of different.
Fascinating.
It is. And I've got to say, I actually have learnt to really love and thrive networking events for that reason. Yeah. Because I think, for me, watching other people and learning how they deal with what might be a typically very broad and topic sector, like you might say marketing, for instance, right? And they might be in a very, very different industry and a very different category to what we're in. But I think there's always learnings, and there's always those sort of getting to understand how they've connected with their target market. How do they resonate? How do they stay relevant? How do they celebrate? And so this was something that I learnt very recently. So I'm a good friend of mine, Rachel Kidwell from TC Pinpoint. Rach is fabulous with this sort of stuff, and just recently she started putting up some congratulations and celebration of different anniversaries with some of her customers, which has been brilliant. And I reached out to her and I said, that's fabulous, I'm going to steal your idea.
Absolutely.
So keep a watch out for some of our social media is sort of changing a little bit, and adding to it. I shouldn't say changing. The stuff that the sort of the celebration and the introduction of all of our new customers as they come along has been an important part of our growth. And it's been an important part of sort of growing our brand and growing our purpose. But we're just going to add some more into it, and we're going to start celebrating, and we're going to start sort of being I guess just proud of the achievements that not just because we can't do it on our own. It's always about our team and our customers. So we couldn't do without our customers.
Absolutely. But I think that's a really good point probably to capture and to finish on is don't forget to be proud of your achievements and your customers. I'm, one of those people who's forever looking for the next thing that I can do. And so often, when we end up finalists in the Telstra Business Awards or whatever else it is that, happens, someone will say to me a week after the event, "Oh, congratulations," and I'm like, "Oh, for what?" Because it was a week ago and I've already moved. But it's that thing of I'm definitely trying to stop for slightly longer to celebrate achievements, but also, like you said, celebrating the business journey. And I think too, it's actually okay to brag about it. We need to find a better name, a better word than brag.
We do, because it's fact. I mean, if you've managed to grow a business, that's not a brag. That's a solid fact. And we want to. I think there's nothing better than to be able to celebrate success. And, one of the reasons why I have been so passionate about being on the board of Women in Innovation here in South Australia for such a long time is, for my beautiful girls, you can't be what you can't see.
Absolutely.
And so if we can see constantly, not just women, but all business owners grow and succeed and celebrate that success, we know that we can get there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've very much got to that point in recent history where I'm refusing now to apologise for being good at what I do. Because I think that sometimes you'll encounter people in life, especially on social media. Everyone bloody has an opinion, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't say that out loud, well, I did, but often people will say, you're posting about this deal, or you've just done this, or blah, And someone said to me the other day, who shall remain nameless, but, they were basically like, oh, you might want to think twice about, talking about X, Y, and Z. You're coming off as a little bit arrogant. And I went, and I actually said to them, which is, I've never used these words before, I said, if it was a man that was doing the same thing right now, would that be perceived as arrogant? And the person asking me the question happened to be a man, and he was like, well, no. And I was like, this is interesting. I said, because all I'm doing is talking about my business achievements, things that I've done, things that I've worked really hard for, that I'm really proud of. But I think as human beings, so not just gender bias, but I think as human beings we have to change the cultural expectation in Australia that you can't be proud of what you do.
Absolutely.
And vocally proud.
Absolutely. And I think that there is a big opportunity for us to mature in that aspect. But I in a good way. I don't want us. I'd hate for us to go over the top as some countries do with their successes and their achievements. So I think that there's a nice middle area where we can do more than what we're doing now, but
still not be arrogant.
That's exactly right. And I guess I'd say to you, Simone, that perhaps maybe those people are just not your tribe.
Yeah, quite possibly.
If they're not happy to share your success and your celebration and celebrate with you, then maybe they're just not your tribe.
That's a really nice way to end it. Tania, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Simone. It's been delightful.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Seriously Social podcast. See our website for more details at www.socialmediaok.com.au/podcast. Check the show notes for credits, music used in the program, and more details about our guests.